Welcome to Harvest Podcast, where we dive deeper into Sunday sermon, hear from guests, or stories from the house.
Well, we're here today with Nick Hester. He's one of our missionaries who's been with us for Reach Week. Welcome, Nick.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Nick is with Chi Alpha. So, first question, what is Chi Alpha?
Chi Alpha, so our name is Greek. If you're thinking that we're a fraternity or a sorority, we get that a lot.
Yeah.
We are the U.S. missions arm to the college campus. And so if you think Chi Alpha, just think Christ ambassadors. That's the easiest way to remember it. The name comes from 2 Corinthians 5, where Paul says that we are Christ's ambassadors. So we represent Jesus for better or for worse. If people know that we're followers of Jesus, they are judging God and our faith by our behavior and how we act. And so that's what we empower our students to do, is to go out and be representatives for Jesus. And we've seen that when students get a picture of the real Jesus, they have a much higher chance of following after him, and then in turn will go out and make other disciples as well.
That's right. So Chi Alpha means Christ ambassador. I love that. I want to go back to that. I remember growing up as a girl in my dad's churches as a little girl. We used to sing a song. Actually, before, when he was still like real involved in youth ministry, we sang a song, Christ Ambassadors. Have you ever heard it?
No, I didn't grow up in the church at all, really. So,
well, we need to, and they haven't taught you that in West Texas?
No.
The West Texas district, which you're also close to. So
yes.
They're in Lubbock. So he is on Texas Tech. That is his mission field. And so he's right there in Lubbock, Texas. I'll teach you Christ Ambassadors.
I'm ready.
Take it back to your college students.
I'm ready for a solo real quick. Everyone ready?
I'm not going to do that right
3, 2.
now.
Oh, okay. Next one, the album will come out. That can be the cover song.
Yeah.
There we go.
Christ Ambassadors. What's it like on a West Texas college campus? Because, it's West Texas, cowboys, and I don't know. You tell me what's it like.
Yes, I assumed, it sounds like what you're kind of insinuating, that it would be, so the college campus as a whole is pretty just secular. They're not Christian environments, and they're usually pretty left-leaning, and you might think in West Texas that would be different. And Texas Tech is definitely more conservative than your average campus, but still very much left-leaning as a whole. So all of the things that are kind of on that side within the agenda are very prominent on the campus. So all the gender identity stuff is very much real, very celebrated. I don't know if I would say pushed so much, but it is definitely celebrated. And the college campus in a lot of ways is kind of a culture setter for the rest of the world.
True.
And so, it's an interesting place.
So let's back up, because you said earlier that you didn't grow up knowing Christ, and so you don't know Christ ambassadors. So how did you meet Jesus? Yes,
I met Jesus through Chi Alpha, through a student, through an ambassador of Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many people, I think we take for granted just how much it matters, the life that we are living. The life that we're living really speaks to the Lord that we're following. That's how so many people judge Jesus, is based on us.
And we do forget that and take it for granted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So many people have problem. Gandhi's famous quote was, "I love your Christ, not your Christians." And that's, thankfully for me, I had the opposite experience. I very skeptical, very hurt, was an atheist when I got to college, not because I was intellectual about it. I was just a hurt child, and hurt kids, that's kind of what you do. You kind of just look at everybody and scowl, and you're just kind of defensive, But I met these guys who really loved Jesus, and they loved him not just when they had to. One of the things that spoke so loudly to me was I would walk into a room, and there'd be 5 college guys who all live in this house, and they're all reading books by choice. And that was so foreign and so weird to me.
Wow.
That it wasn't for a class. It wasn't, they're college students, so reading wouldn't be that crazy. But and I ask them, and they say, yeah, these are books written by old dead guys and old dead girls who loved God and walked with him. And man, reading this book is like having a conversation with them, and it's right here. And we can learn so much about God and what it means to walk with him by reading these books. And that, to me, spoke way louder than anything I ever saw at a service or even at a small group, at a Bible study, because everyone's a Christian at church on Sunday, right? It's kind of like everyone's a fan of the team when you're at the game, right? They put on their jersey, they put on their hat. It doesn't mean they're a real fan. They're just attending the game. And I think that's what I had kind of seen within Christians. Like, oh, you're at church on Sunday, you talk a good game at the Bible study, but outside the Bible study, that's not who you really are. And so, yeah, who you really love, you spend your free time, right, doing what you love and being with who you love. And what I saw was, man, these guys really love Jesus.
That is so great.
Yeah.
So how many years ago was that for you? Because you're still young. You're younger than me, for sure. So how many years ago was that when you went to college and met these guys that loved Jesus?
Yes, I got to the campus in fall of 2009.
Okay.
And the first year, just kind of did my own thing, did what I wanted. And then it was right at the end of the freshman year is when I first met Chi Alpha and decided to give Jesus a chance, really.
And so the Chi Alpha students, it sounds like all this week hearing you tell stories, like they're knowing what their mission is. Like we're here, we're joining Chi Alpha, not just college because they're there to learn and get educated and all that, but we're joining Chi Alpha with a mission, and that is we're going to go out and look for guys and gals and like fish for them and like real. And so they found you. Yeah. They invited you to some event they were having, something like that.
Yeah, it was just a small group. So my girlfriend at the time, who, spoiler, is now my wife, she had got right with Jesus, and
that was good for you.
That was a big deal. Yeah. It was a very big deal because I was very bitter and wanted nothing to do with God. And when I would share with her of all the struggles and things I was going through, she would just say, I don't have all your answers, but I know the answer is Jesus. And that's pretty much as simple as she left it.
Wow.
And as much as I fought, I'd hear the gospel, and objectively, it is good news. It is good news, but is it true? And that was my big holdup. I hear a lot of really cool things, but what's actually real? And so when I finally hit a point where I said, I want to give this a shot. If I'm going to say I don't believe, I want to know why I don't believe. So I need to educate myself, get in that world a little bit. And so I went to my roommate, who was part of Chi Alpha. He was just part of a small group. And I just went to him and I asked, I was like, hey, you're in that Christian frat church thing, right? You go on Thursdays? And he was like, yeah, dude, you should come to small group. Like, come hang out. You're super welcome. I was a little suspicious, but I was like, you're my friend and you say it's cool, so I'll come with you. And I go, and it's just a small group. And so there's like 5 of us sitting in a circle. And since it was my first time there, they all kind of shared like a few-minute version of their story and where they were at with God. And they were all believers. And it got to me, and I was the last one. And all I said was, God's not real. If he's real, he hates me. And people who believe in God have made up this fairy tale so they can sleep at night.
That was really nervy of you in that group with all these guys that just told you they believe in Jesus. That was like you saying, so I need your help because I'm hurting.
Yeah. And thankfully, that's what they heard. Because what was in my heart was I was looking for a fight. Yeah. I kind of sat back and was like, okay, let's see what you got, Christian boy. Let's see what you got.
I love
and they
it.
heard what you just said. And he kept eye contact with me the whole time. And when I finished, he just said, man, thank you for sharing. I'm really glad you're here.
That's awesome.
And he moved to the next person. And that was
it.
And that made such a huge impact on me.
Wow.
And so the fact that was such a big deal for me, and it was the little things that I saw in their life that made such an impact. I think so often we think of like, we've got to have this fantastic understanding of apologetics, and we need to understand Hebrew and Greek if we're going to explain the Bible. And like, we get overwhelmed by someone who is an atheist thinking what they need is like all this complex stuff, when so often they just need to be loved.
Yes.
They just need to be welcomed in, loved on, and that, like we say.
Because people go to college, like you said earlier, broken, angry. they're coming from broken families.
Yes.
They're bringing all that with them, and they're just, people just need love and especially if they haven't had it at all in their home as a foundation of their life, or they have had a lot of brokenness, then it's just ripe for more of that as they grow older.
Yes.
So these guys loved you.
Yeah, we love to say
And they
love
started,
and laughter.
and they were just, so the other thing I heard you say, and this is so true for me too, I'm a preacher's kid, so I've just grown up in church my whole life. And so many preachers' kids get bitter and angry and go through things. And fortunately for all of my siblings and I, we've stayed with Christ. And I believe that it's because my mom and dad were real. Whatever they did in public, at church,
Come on.
how they were at church was exactly how they were at home.
Come on.
And so we just thought, this is true. This is real. We never doubted. Of course, we've all gone through things in life because we all need to make God our own Savior.
Yes.
And so we do that. But I think it helps so much when you have that foundation at home. So then these guys were living that way for you. Mm-hmm. So they were talking in small group like this, but then they were living out
Yes.
like they loved Christ publicly. And that
Yes.
was speaking to you.
Yeah, that spoke louder than anything else. Than how they acted at service or in a small group setting was how they acted when we played soccer and did homework or played video games. Like that spoke way, way louder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've also mentioned this week how you build relationship with the students, so they kept you didn't turn them off by any of your, hard or rejection or what. So how long until you said, "Oh, I want Jesus to be my Savior too," in that
Yes.
college year?
Yeah, it was a long process. It was so after that small group meeting, the next day I went back and I apologized to him and I was like, man, the Lord really met me in my own reasoning because one of the reasons I didn't believe was because, I'm just so smart and I can reason everything and I don't need anyone to tell me anything. Mm-hmm. And as I reflected, I realized I was angry at this guy for being kind to me.
Oh, wow.
And was like, wait a minute, that's not right or healthy or logical. And so I went back and I apologized and I was like, man, but I do want to know if this is true or not. And so got me a Bible, taught me how to read it. I had questions about prayer, worship. I mean, everything, every service I had in every small group, I would have questions. I'd have pushback, when they'd point out a guy who's like, oh, he's really godly. He knows his stuff. I'd go talk to him, and I'd ask the hard questions. And so that went on for about 6 to 8 months, somewhere in that realm. But I read every day. I prayed every day.
Wow.
I still have copies of when I first started to pray, I was advised to write down my prayers. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And I would write down to whom it may concern. Oh. And I would pray it out. And I still have those on paper, which is so they're like some of those valuable possessions I have, That's awesome. And so, but it was at 6 to 8 months. And the prayer was like, God, if you're real, prove it. Mm-hmm. If you're real, show me, reveal it to me. And he did. And when he did, that was it. That moment was everything.
So they were living this out before you, but I bet you, and you probably know the answer to this now, but I bet you they were also praying for you the entire time. And your girlfriend, who's now your wife.
Yeah, her whole family.
They were like,
she had an army praying for me. Yeah.
You didn't have a chance.
Yes. So
because they were praying for you, of course.
That's right.
But they were also patient with you because it does take time. So did you not grow up in any kind of church environment or knowing God at all?
So we went to church on Christmas and Easter predominantly, and as like a little kid, we grew up Catholic somewhat, and but that was really kind of it. Yeah. And later in
questions
high school,
about prayer and worship, all those things are going to come up when you get into this environment where these students are praising God and
oh yeah,
praying.
all that was so strange. Yeah, guys saying, "Hey, I love you." What? I grew up playing sports, kind of that, want to be macho man and guys, stuff like that. Guys, they would call shotgun for the other person. Oh. Little things like that, that were just so weird to me. But at the same time, I was like, that's kind of cool, man. And like arguing about who's going to pay for the other person. And, when we'd be talking about a guy behind his back, it would be like, man, he's so awesome. I love that he's this way and this way. And man, he's just such a good friend.
Wow.
And like, wait, he's not around. Why are
So
we
you
talking
were
about
watching all of that and
Got to
seeing
see all of it.
all
Yeah.
the character in these guys.
Yes.
And that was attractive to you, for sure.
Yeah.
Now they won you to Christ. The Holy Spirit did the work. All
That's
those
right.
prayers were working, for sure.
That's right. That's right.
That's so great. And so that's basically the shtick for Chi Alpha. It's
That's
small
what we wanna
groups,
see.
and you have probably some Christian students come in knowing there's a
Absolutely.
Chi Alpha and they get attached. There isn't, sadly, yet a Chi Alpha in every college campus across the United States, but there are Chi Alphas in a lot of them. And I'm sure that it depends on who the leaders and directors are, but I know we don't have a Chi Alpha here at UTEP. We do have an amazing Baptist organization that I think does a great work. At least the last time I knew it did. But it would be wonderful to have Chi Alpha on UTEP for sure.
Yes, we're praying and working toward it.
So, what's it like on campus with Gen? I mean, I know college campus has all ages, but primarily it's the generation that we're in right now. So, what is Gen Z like on college campus, and how hard is it to reach them? How easy is it to reach them? What are the trends you're seeing with Gen Z? Let's talk about Gen Z a little bit.
Yeah, Gen Z. There's a really wonderful book that I love to recommend to people called The Anxious Generation. Not written by a Christian person, but it's like really well researched, and it really stems to just kind of give you a picture of what they're like, what they've experienced, and their timeline.
So
and
they're
not so much-
anxious. That's the
Yes,
adjective.
that's the adjective that's there.
Wow.
Anxious and then lonely is the other one. There's other books. There's a book called The Lonely Generation.
Of course, in our social media word, lonely would be the thing.
Right.
How ironic.
Yes, so ironic.
Yeah.
And in
Wow.
the book, it really connects a lot of that to smartphones, social media, technology as a whole. And in the book, it just kind of brings you through the timeline of where they've been at in their life. And so, like for me, I'm a younger or older, I forget, tail end of the millennial generation. And so iPhone came out in 2007. So I was 17 years old. So I was back end of high school. But they weren't really popular until I was kind of graduating college. And so kind of got to see that transformation of the whole world where, no one really had a smartphone. You still lived life with people, and then slowly saw the effect of smartphones and how it started to change everything. Well, Gen Z, they've never known a world without it.
So true.
And they'll even say that to each other jokingly. They'll be like, "Oh, you were an iPad kid. I can tell." And when they say that, they're saying like you lack the social skills, like there's this like kind of caricature that comes with that.
There's
term.
a whole language on
Yeah.
social media and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different world, and it's a
is.
world of there's really no consequence. There's not no consequence, much less consequence. But it's created an anxiety in them that I've seen that's pretty common. And really, I mean, a lot of the criticisms of Gen Z, this book is very helpful when you see the life that they've been given and the world that they've been given to live in.
By all of
of
us,
it makes sense. Exactly. And we've provided that. Right. And I remember when iPhones got real popular, it was always older generations saying, "Wow, you kids are just always on your phone." And they were right. Right. We're all on our phones. But in the really since COVID, I've seen the increase. I'm like, in my opinion, just from what I observe anecdotally, everyone is equally as bad. I mean, it's just different, right? And maybe it's a different
so
social
true.
media platform, maybe it's something else, but you just see, you'll see a Gen Z or someone, they're just numbers are flying, but then you'll see an older person with their doing the one finger scroll and looking hard, but like now we all do it, and we're just becoming more and more disconnected. But for them, that's all they've ever known. And so there is an anxiety because they've always had Google and YouTube. So if there's ever a question, they just go, "Bzz." So they know an insane amount. Like, I mean, it is.
I wonder if that
It's
adds to
wild.
their anxiety.
I think it absolutely does.
Because now in this social media world, we can know what's going on around the entire world.
Yes.
And plus what's right here local, we can worry about everything in the entire world.
Yeah, because we hear about it.
And I also wonder if they have the FOMO, the fear of missing out, because they
100%.
see all they compare themselves, or is that part of it too? Probably.
Definitely. Yeah, because social media, you only show your best.
Yes.
You know, you show your best side, best picture,
Favorite
best
things,
part of your
whatever,
life.
yeah.
No one, posts a picture of their like
Messy beds.
Yeah, unmade. That was the exact example I was going to use. Yeah, unmade bed and your kind of bags under your eyes. No one takes a selfie like that, But it's like everyone lives that life. Everyone has a part of their life that's not so glamorous, but it does. It conditions you, and it's just.
So how is it relating to them? Is it easy? Is it just like any other generation approaching them on college campus, like those guys that came to you, the group that you serve now on Texas Tech, and you send out, and including you, like, do you approach in the same way? Is it the same, basically? Just love that they all need, love and acceptance.
Yes. True. Like heart posture, right, never changes, right? The issue with mankind from Adam all the way to now has never changed, right? We want to be in charge of our own life. We want to be the ruler. And so that just manifests differently across the board. So I would say, yes, the language that, right, every generation, every culture is love. And that takes, so we say our definition for love is the unselfish choice for the highest good of God and his kingdom. Or if it's a person, I'm going to make the unselfish choice for what's the best for you. And that's regardless of me, regardless of my preference, what I love, what I don't, and that I'm going to like commit myself to you, that you would come to know Jesus, much like a parent stubbornly loves their kid, even when their kid is being the worst. As a parent, you're like, no, I'm sticking with you, how a marriage is supposed to be. When I'm at my worst, my wife is going to say, nope, I'm in this for you, and I'm in this for her, and that's how it's supposed to be, and that's what I encourage people with. That's what we try to do with students. It's like, man, just love in that same way,
So give us, I don't share names or anything, but what's a student that you or some of your team are working on right now? Like, tell us the story and tell us the challenges, and how's it going with them?
Yes, one interesting thing, just right when you said that, some guys came to my mind that were in my small group a year or so ago that we're meeting. Good news is we're meeting way less atheists. Very few, in my experience anyway, with Gen Z are atheists.
Do you think that's thanks to Dr. Jordan Peterson at all? Like, I've thought about that before, because, atheism is basically dead now.
It is.
And it's not just Dr. Jordan Peterson. There's a lot of Christian men and women who are scientists who are like doing really great work and writing books and stuff that are probably helping with that. But Dr. Jordan Peterson is just so famous and well known around the world, and he's talked about the Bible and all.
I like him a lot. I appreciate him a lot. He's cool. He's so honest. So honest. I think that's all played a part, that people are seeing just how things need to change. But in the examples that I've seen, and in these guys in particular, is they're not atheists because they've experienced so much darkness. They're like demonic oppression, sleep paralysis is so common. It is like, I had these three guys, it was like 5 or 6 in my small group, and we're in my living room, and we'd all been together for a few weeks, and I was like, okay, Lord, we want to have like those U2 moments, we're like, we bond over something and we can all be friends. Because I had a relationship with each of them individually, but they weren't yet together. And I was like, okay, Lord, let's go deeper tonight. Let's really like share our history, stories, and maybe we can like get real friendships here. Well, as it turns out, 3 of the 5 guys in the room, fathers were murderers. One's dad was a serial killer who's no longer alive. The other one was high up in the gangs and basically never like pulled a trigger, but he would make the calls to say, this guy goes, this guy goes. And the other guy, he's only met him like once, because when he was like 2 or 3 years old, his father strangled his 1-year-old sister. And so we're in the living room hearing that, and I'm just
that's dark,
blown away. So dark. And what's not shocking at all is they share that, and we're just in the room kind of like, how are we all in this room together? Like I had a hard time with my dad, but nothing like that, And then we're just sharing that history. And then it comes up that one of them starts talking about sleep paralysis. And that's something I didn't even know was a term. I remember I experienced it as a kid. I'd watch horror movies and we had just garbage playing in our house sometimes, but it's exactly what it sounds like. You'd be sleeping and you
can't get up.
You feel like you're just tied to the bed, which
That's
is
demonic.
so scary.
Pretty sure it's demonic.
It's gotta be, right? Like it's, and obviously, science will have other reasons for it, but it's like, man, this just logically makes no sense. And so one guy sharing a story, and I'll never forget this. He's like, yeah, last night I had a hard time falling asleep, man, because that one demon. I'm like, that one demon, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, I'm laying back in my bed and I see this black cloud of smoke swirling in my room. And then I can feel it get like real cold and like I'm getting cold and I start to kind of hear a voice. And so I want to reach up and like I reach up my hand and I feel like something grab my arm and like pull me back down. And he's telling this story like I might tell you about the morning I had.
Like we're talking right now.
Yeah, like we're talking, just very normal.
It's normal for
no
him.
Emotion, no, he's just sharing this like it is just in every trip to the grocery store. So that was odd. And then the other guys in the room, particularly the two whose fathers were in that same boat, were identifying with everything he was saying. Wow. That it was so normal. Oh yeah, did it smell like this? Did it sound like this? Did you feel this? Did you have this thought? Hey, next time try this. I mean, in the same way we would discuss just the most regular thing. And it's something they experience on the regular because it's so common.
Wow, yeah.
And that's just so like difficult. And it's like, where do you go with that? And so good news is these guys, they would make fun of atheists. They mocked it openly because they're like, you're going to tell me there's no spirit realm? Like you're a fool, man. Come on. There's very much a spirit realm.
I'm pretty sure that even Joe Rogan believes there's more because he does the mushrooms and things that takes him and he sees things or whatever. I mean, even secular Joe Rogan is like, no, there's more. There's more. He just doesn't know Jesus yet, but we'll work on all these guys in prayer. I think too, wow, I'm just soaking this in because, we did go through in our history this real materialistic age where all the spiritual got pushed aside or very private and personal. But now this idea of God is coming back into the consciousness in the forefront of people. And we, as followers of Christ, we know there's more. We know there's a spiritual realm.
Yes.
There's good and evil in the world. But if the rest of the world who doesn't know Jesus yet, I can see where it just would make sense that the demonic is going to show up more too. I mean, he's never gone away. He's always been around.
That's
but
right.
in America, we kind of suppressed him. I don't know why, because there has always been an underbelly and a darkness, but around the globe, you go in the mission field, witchcraft, demonic, all of that is common. But here, we've kind of suppressed it for so long in the Western world, maybe. Yeah. But now, wow, they're talking about it on campus, on YouTube, on podcasts, no, there's more.
Yes.
What an opportunity to bring the one who is greater.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I did with them. I was like, hey, would you guys read the Bible with me? And we read Mark, because Mark 1 is just basically Jesus laughing in the face of demons, darkness, and you see his power over that. And just trying to encourage them, like, guys, this is who he is. And this is what he does. Like, they tremble. They're terrified of Jesus. And I would love to have the, story that, they're all walking with Jesus. They're all missionaries now, None of them are following Jesus, but
they have a group of people probably praying for all of you guys.
Absolutely.
I think that that is key too. We come across people, and there are people, you, for example, the life in the world and the family you came out of, but then you met this girl who started praying for you and getting people to pray for you, and then you got introduced to Chi Alpha, and they started praying for you. And like these guys, they've come out of a world where probably nobody is praying for them or has ever prayed for them. But now you guys are accountable for them now, so you're praying for them.
That's right.
And prayer can make all the difference in somebody's life and decision to come to Christ.
Yes.
And the witness, of course, of all of you.
Yes.
Them seeing Jesus in you.
Yes. That's
Do
right.
they still come around
Thank you, Lord.
and interact with you guys?
One of the guys had been coming around, stopped about a few months back, and then one of the other ones, I saw him on campus like 2 or 3 weeks ago and hadn't talked to him in a while and just kind of, hey man, how's it going? And so, I mean, over the years, I've had probably hundreds at this point, guys that have been like in small group at different lengths of time and just, regularly as they come to mind, praying for them. And I have one from a first year small group leading who lives here in El Paso and just talked with him yesterday. We're going to hang out later tonight and just, not walking with Jesus, but I'm like, man, I'm still burdened. It's been 10 years, but I'm like, I still want you to know Jesus. And if I got an opportunity to be with you, then I'll take it.
And that's great. You still stay connected with your students like that you've known and met. And then that also speaks to him now,
Yes. Yeah. It's not because you're part of Chi Alpha that I care and love you. It's because you're made in God's image and he's bought you.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's the basis of our value. That's it right there.
So you're seeing more of that. I mean, and just the willingness to talk about it too.
Yes.
Yeah. The world is so broken and needs Jesus. It just, there's a YouTube channel that highlights some of the brokenness in the world, the underbelly of the world, and just the brokenness across all kinds of life, all kinds of people. And it just, you can go down a rabbit trail all the time on YouTube.
Yes.
It just breaks your heart. And you're like, oh, God, what can we do as the church? It takes all of us. It takes all different kinds of us to reach. And thank God that Chi Alpha is there and that you're there and that Chi Alpha was there for you.
Yes. So
and that you're there for the students on Texas Tech. The other thing that, and maybe there's more you want to say about all that you were just saying, but also I want you to talk about the fact that your Chi Alpha has sent missionaries around the world. So Chi Alpha, as he briefly mentioned in the very beginning, is tied to the Assemblies of God. It's the missions arm to the college campus that the Assemblies of God have set up and organized. And so you have raised up these students who decide God's calling them to work for him in some way. Oftentimes they stay with Chi Alpha as missionaries, but then also they are sent off. And you've sent, in fact, we've had them here come to Harvest. There's a single girl that she's in Greece now. She's been here. I don't know if any of you remember a couple years ago. We support her now. She came straight out of Chi Alpha. Just, there's been 2 or 3 like that. Yes. Is that a goal of Chi Alpha overall, or is that a goal of Nick Hester and Texas Tech's Chi Alpha? Like, where does that come from?
Yes. There's a lot of things in our life as believers that we chalk up to like, well, if God wills it, like, am I going to do this? Am I going to go here? It's like, well, we'll see what the Lord wants. But when it comes to Jesus coming back, he says in Matthew 24 that this gospel must be preached to the ends of the earth, and then the end will come.
Yes.
And Jesus will be here to rule and reign, and we're in a training program now to rule and reign with him, right? And so there is something that we don't have to say, well, when God wills it, if he wills it, he's already said it.
Yes.
That he will come back when the gospel has been preached everywhere. So that is really the beauty of the miracle grow of responsibility when a student will take responsibility for their neighbor and they will lay their life down for their neighbor to know Jesus. It cultivates the heart of a missionary. And that's my goal for every student that comes through our Chi Alpha, is that they would leave with the heart of a missionary. Whatever your vocation might be, I personally have no cares at all. I think God would rather have a godly Uber driver, cook,
and that
janitor,
will be your mission field, your car. Yeah.
That's right. Than to have a half-hearted missionary, who's in it because they think they get brownie points with God by being a vocational missionary or pastor or anything, because it's not that way. And so it's cool. So we do mission trips. Right now we're in the middle of our missions month. So we take 4 weeks. We have missionaries from across the world come in each week. They get time with our students. They preach at our large group service. We spend the whole month raising a big offering that we give. As a Chi Alpha, we support, I think right now, around a dozen missionaries every month that are across the world.
Is that Texas Tech Chi Alpha, or is that Chi Alpha?
That's Texas Tech Chi Alpha. That's how we do it.
Okay.
Every Chi Alpha is pretty autonomous to do things how they want. And then in the summer, we take mission trips. So right now we're set to take, I think, 5 overseas mission trips. And so we do that every year. So with Tasman, who's in Greece, when we met her, she wanted to go party, go to the sororities and do all that. And she was met by a staff member and was like, we're going to walk with Jesus. And that's how she met Jesus. And she went on one of it might have been our very first overseas trip we ever took. We went to Greece and we went with these missionaries, and she got exposed to that very early on. And so she graduated, did the internship program, was on staff with us for a while, and was just saying, God, I feel like I could go. And she'd already been there. She knows the people there. And it was like something we forget, that God takes volunteers. He's already commanded us to go. So really, we should need a word from God to stay.
Yeah.
When we think, I need this fantastic word from God if I'm going to go do something like go to a country. But he's already said, go to all the world. And so that's what I think a lot of the experience has been. There's this burden and you see the need and we just say, Lord, okay, that's where I want to go. And we start going. And as long as there's green lights and he's in it, then we're like, that's where we're going to keep on going. So wherever God would call students, we try to hold everyone with open hands, love them, bring them up, lay our lives down. But ultimately where they go, like, God, they're yours. Whenever they need to go, they go, and we want to equip them and send them. And
because we need, faithful followers of Christ that are bankers. We need faithful followers of Christ that are scientists. Faithful followers of Christ that are farmers.
Come on.
Or in agriculture or whatever, the science is. We need them.
That's right. Everything.
Because what's the phrase you guys always say? I've heard Kevin and Brittany say it while they've been here. They also came out of Chi Alpha, and they're going to a faraway place.
Yeah.
But you say that your mission field is...
Yeah, missions is where your feet are.
There you go.
That's right. Wherever you are. That's right.
That's your mission field. So in the doctor's office, wherever it is, that's where our mission field is.
Yes.
Praise God.
Yes, such a privilege. You're either a missionary or you're the mission field. Right? That's it.
That's right.
We're following Jesus. We're here to reach. And if you're not, then you need to be reached, basically.
That's right. So, church, I hope that after this conversation today, you're challenged to be the missionary.
Yes.
Wherever you are, to love people. The other thing that I've heard you say a lot this week is you build relationships. And it's easy on college campus because the students are there for a long time.
They have a lot of time on their hands.
And so they need small groups. You guys meet and have small groups like 5 days a week or whatever. And it's not like that when we're grown-ups and we're out in the world working. However, if you're in an office job or something, you're there every day.
Yes.
And your coworkers are watching your life every day and all that. And I know that so many of you Harvest Christian Center people are missionaries in your offices where you are. But I hope you've been challenged today. I have, I just to be loving to the barista at Starbucks and take the time to get to know them. Because let's end on that, because that's the other thing that you said is key, is building a relationship.
Yes.
And how do you build a relationship with somebody that is just a stranger?
Yeah. The best way I can explain to anybody is I encourage people to pursue a person. Like if you're a guy, pursue a guy like you pursue your wife. Before you pursued your wife, before she was your wife, how did you pursue her? And it's so funny to tell that to guys, especially college guys, because they're like, hey man,
what does that mean?
That's weird. That's weird. But what I tell them is, so if you're with a girl and you really like her and you want the relationship to go farther, you listen way more intently. If she name drops a certain movie she likes or a certain candy that she likes, you kind of like jot that down. And the next time you're there, you're like, hey, here you go. Here's that candy you mentioned. Wow. Like you're trying to show her, like, I've been thinking about you even when we're not together, right? Like you're someone that I really care about. Like the different gestures and thing you would do to try to show her, like, man, I really care about you. It's really no different for your same gender, right? It's just not a romantic relationship, but it is you're trying to show them, like, I really love you. I really care about you.
For eternal sake, for the love of Christ.
That's right.
Because Christ loves them and there is eternity that we're all facing.
Yes.
And you want them to know the goodness of God.
Come on.
He came for them. He loves them so much.
That's
so
right.
just pursuing them. Yeah, and it's not weird because you're pursuing them for Christ.
That's right. Yeah. It might feel a little weird. That's just because God's got to refine us.
Yeah, we're
right?
not used to it. We're just not used to it.
Love with that pure love, right? Like that
That's
brotherly, sisterly. It's just so uncommon in our world that it feels odd, but it's what we're made. It's what we're made for.
It is what we're made for. And I think on that note, Nick Hester, we need to take the world back by loving people that way.
Come on. Come on.
All right. God bless you, church.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah.